Hey everybody, my name is Roger, and I wanted to give a strong recommendation for the use of Marc Van Steyn. It turns out we have actually used Marc twice, once about 18 years ago when we were looking to buy a home, and then more recently when we're looking to sell a home, which was, the far more complex, stressful situation with lots of moving parts. And I'll tell you, Marc in both cases did a great job, particularly with this last effort where we were selling our home. And I'll tell you, from my perspective, if you're looking for a realtor, there's some things that I think you need to know about the market in general that I've learned. And one is that there's a very small group of realtors in Ohio that are selling a very large portion of the real estate. North of 80% are being sold by a very small group of realtors. So it's important that you look for a realtor that falls into that very small category. And I can tell you for a fact that Marc is in that category. In fact, I would argue that he's probably in the upper tier of that very small category. And we've learned that throughout the process of working with Marc. And what Marc does, there's a lot of attributes that Marc brings to the table. The primary things are the things that I think anybody would be looking for. Marc is available, he's responsive, he's very knowledgeable, he's grateful. I would say overlaying all of that as the most important thing is Marc is ethical, takes that very, very seriously. So, those are the key things I think you need to look for and Marc brings to the table. Beyond that, however, Marc is very good at handling the entire process. Very early on in the process, when we started to discuss the prospects of selling our home, Marc came in and started to make some very early recommendations about what we need to be thinking about, what we need to be doing, maybe some changes we need to make to the house and those types of things. And so in addition to that, it's not just his own recommendations. He has a team of folks who can come in. We had an individual he recommended came in. She was a stager and she helped us with just a number of things, everything from paint to carpet to little things that you really, if you're not in the business, you really wouldn't think about. And so that was very, very helpful. And then after that, Marc made recommendations on the contractors or vendors who could come in and help do those things. Made multiple recommendations that all turned out to be great. They were, very professional. So that's all of that is a very big piece of it because that provides not only peace of mind, but make sure that you're getting your house ready to market and that the value is going to be the highest it possibly can be based on those recommendations. And if you don't sell a house a lot, you're not going to know those types of details. So it's very, very valuable. Speaking of not selling a house a lot, Marc said something to me very early on, which rang very true throughout, which is if you haven't sold a house in the last year or two, you do not know what the process is like. It is changing exponentially. And that's primarily in the area of technology. And this is where I would tell you Marc has a very unique differentiator. Marc understands the technology. And when I say technology, think about in terms of marketing your house through areas like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and Google. And not just that, Marc has some software that he uses to manage all of that and track all of that. He's on top of that in a way that I would argue most realtors are not, and that brings a lot of value in the way today homes are sold. And so speaking of the way homes are sold, because of all of that, we had a great experience. We had somewhere on the order of, I think, 25 visitations in the very first weekend. We ended up with 6 offers. I think most of those, if not all, were above, certainly all at, and most of them were above asking price. So the process went great. We were kind of in the catbird seat. We were able to select the best offer out of all of those in a very short order. We've managed to sell our house. And now large part of that was thanks to Marc Van Steyn and the work he and his team does. So I appreciate it. And I would give a strong recommendation for Marc and happy to answer any questions if anybody ever wants to call me. Thank you.